Okay, sound test. Sounds good. So, hello everyone. Welcome to stream number 6 of Tatoeba. So today it's just going to be me, and it's going to be a little bit random. This is maybe the last stream of the year, and there's like kind of all sorts of topics I've always wanted to talk about, but I guess I never really got the chance to talk about, and today is going to be about that. So just a bunch of random information about Tatoeba, or not so random, but more about how Tatoeba works. So it's still about how Tatoeba, to teach people how Tatoeba works, but this is not so much on a technical level like most of the previous streams, but more on the organizational level. All right. So for that, I've actually written down for myself a bunch of questions that I'll be following. But if you have questions, so if anyone watching this has any questions on the fly, feel free to ask in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. Okay, so let's start with an existential question, which is, why does Tatoeba exist? And so I already had a stream to explain why Tatoeba was created, but why does it still exist today? Because it's been 15 years since the idea itself started, and so the whole idea of collecting sentences and translations isn't really new anymore. There's many dictionaries now that offer example sentences when you search for a word or for a phrase, and so you could be asking, well, is there still a value of having Tatoeba? And so for me, so two of the things that kind of distinguishes Tatoeba from other tools, other platforms, other projects out there is that it's open source, for the first thing, and that the data is open. And so what does this imply? So the fact that it's open source, it means that as a user, you actually can have some influence on how the tool itself evolves. So if you would go to a website, so probably the most used dictionary out there is Word Reference. If you would go to Word Reference, I believe they are not open source, and so if there's something in the way that this website works that you think could be improved, there is not much you can do except try to contact the owner of the website and suggest improvements. But for Tatoeba, it's different because, let me switch to this view here. So for Tatoeba, it's different because if there is something in the way Tatoeba works that you wish could change, you actually have a way. So we have a section here for developers, but you have a way to make a difference. So that's one thing. And the second thing is open data. So the fact that every sentence and translations we're collecting are available to anyone to reuse. I think that's something, I mean, at least I haven't really seen other projects do this kind of things at the scale that Tatoeba is doing. So there might be some corpus out there that are or corpora that are bilingual or with like maybe just a few sentences, but I don't think I know of any project that attempts to cover as many languages as possible, and one day hopefully all the languages, and that releases their data like in an open license. So those are the two things I think that distinguishes Tatoeba from other projects, and as long as there are not other projects doing the kind of thing, this something similar, but in a better way, I think Tatoeba will remain, will continue to exist. And to be honest, even if there were other projects, I think it's not a bad thing to have several projects doing kind of the same thing with almost the same principles, because then you don't have a monopoly. There could be some fundamental principles with Tatoeba that people might disagree with. The decisions we make about like what kind of sentences is allowed in the corpus. For instance, if somebody really strongly disagrees with how Tatoeba manages that, I think it would not be a bad thing to offer a separate platform where there's different rules and people who are more aligned with these different rules can go over there and they would be happier. So that's at least my take on why Tatoeba exists. But at the end of the day, I think Tatoeba exists because people still find a use for a project. And I mean, I cannot read people's mind. I have no idea what could be all the reasons why people enjoy contributing to Tatoeba, why we continue to have many sentences. Like, I think everyone can have their own reasons for that. So in fact, if you're watching this and you have a different reason why you enjoy Tatoeba, why you contribute to Tatoeba, why you use Tatoeba, as opposed to other websites out there that could be doing the same thing, then feel free to share. It's actually very interesting to know this. So yeah. Maybe one other thing I think that I've noticed with Tatoeba that I haven't found really in other places is the way like the collaboration aspect, how it offers, I mean, how there is more of a sense of community while building this whole corpus, because we have the possibility to comment on every sentence, and so it offers a little bit more interaction, I think. So there is a question in the chat. Maybe I can bring chat question here. That's a bit small, unfortunately. I'll just read it. So the question is, should Tatoeba's sentences be useful for language learners only? Well, for me, that's a clear no. It shouldn't be just useful for... Okay, I need to... Sorry, I need to fix layouts. Okay, I messed up my layouts. And it's dead. Okay, I'll have to rely on YouTube text. So, yeah, should Tatoeba sentences be useful only for language learners? I don't think so. Like, I mean, I guess if you look at it, maybe yes, because the thing is, we never stop to learn about languages. Like you can be a learner at beginner level, and you can be a learner still even if you master the language. There will always be something to learn. I mean, the language is not. I mean, a language is not something that is like just fixed, and you have a finite amount of information that you can learn, and then it's over. Like, I think language is something that is constantly evolving. So in a way, I mean, if you're asking, should it be only useful for language learners? Well, maybe yes, because everybody will always be a language learner no matter what. Like, if you're doing linguistic research, you can still be learning things about languages. So Tatoeba shouldn't be just focused on like how do I say this? It's not just for beginners, like not for language learners who are at the beginner level or even intermediate level. Like typically, if you think of somebody who studies languages in school, but it should really be for any kind of learning, and that goes up to research in linguistics and such things. Next question is, some people might use Tatoeba as a localization repository. Is it okay? Well, I think it's okay as long as it's not a burden for Tatoeba to support it. So we have, like, at the core of Tatoeba, I think we try to build a corpus that is like, and I think that, I mean, that's one topic I'll address a little bit later, but like, as you contribute to Tatoeba, you get a sense of what is good content in there, like what really fits. And it's, I personally, I wouldn't be able to really describe it with words, but you get a sense of what kind of information feels valuable. Like, there, you develop a sense of value for this. And so if someone was, had just like bits of strings for their website, for instance, that are not complete sentences, and they just add it to Tatoeba in the hope that they get translated, that feels not in line with the kind of data that we are collecting, right? This is not the kind of things that we put the most value on. Now, you could argue that, okay, this one string brings a completely new vocabulary, and it's maybe better to have it there than not have it at all. So yeah, you could argue things like that, but the main idea is, if people use it for localization, they could, but to be honest, it's not the best platform for this. It's, if you wanted to localize some of your applications, Tatoeba is not meant for that. In fact, if it was meant for that, we would use Tatoeba to translate our website itself, and we don't. Like, we actually use another website which is called Transifex. So we actually use another platform for that. So yeah, it's just, Tatoeba is not designed for people to put strings and hope that they get translated. So somebody else is saying, it took me a lifetime to learn English, and there are people who can speak 7 languages. How is that? What's the secret? Is there any? So I guess it helps if you grow up in a multilingual environment. So, if your parents are from different nationalities and speak different languages, and you grew up in a different country. So if you are young and you get already to be exposed to several languages, I mean, being young is probably like, when you're an infant, like your capability to learn new languages is really incredible, and at least as far as I can remember for myself. When I was a kid, I was born in Vietnam, then I moved to France. I was 4 years old, and I picked up French like in a matter of like within a year. I think I could start to understand French without I didn't need textbooks or anything. Just watching TV was enough. So I guess there's an advantage if you get this kind of exposure as a kid, while your brain is still very plastic. And I would assume that people who can speak all these languages have started learning different languages very young and didn't start like just when they were already adults. But then after that, I honestly don't know the whole neurology behind language learning. So this might be things you can ask directly to the people who speak several languages. How did they? I mean, that's for sure. There's a bunch of people who who are like polyglots and make videos about how they've learned languages themselves. That's something you'll have to investigate on your own. I do not have a complete answer for that. All right. So we can continue a little bit. So I started with the question, why does Tatoeba exist? And that brings to kind of the opposite question of what would it take for Tatoeba to die? So I don't want to make anybody scared. Tatoeba isn't going to shut down anytime soon, as far as I know, and also as far as I can tell, I think Tatoeba is quite resilient. It's pretty hard to kill. So the closest we've been to witnessing the death of Tatoeba was actually in 2017, and this is actually documented in the blog. So in 2017, we had issues with the server, and and I posted this very short blog post saying that Tatoeba is temporarily down, and it was back. It took actually 2 weeks to get it back online. So for a whole 2 weeks, nobody could use Tatoeba. So if we look at the date here is June 12, where I posted this, and Tatoeba was back on June 26. So yeah, it was a whole lot of time, and I suppose a lot of people were asking themselves, well, is Tatoeba going to actually come back? So what happened in this incident is that we had a server for which the SSDs, the drive, the hard, not the hard drive, but yeah, well, I'll assume everybody knows what's the SSD. So the SSD basically died. So all the data we had saved in there actually disappeared, and there was no way to restore it. So you can basically imagine as if Tatoeba was running on a computer somewhere. So you just imagine a real computer running somewhere, and just the computer shuts down, and you can never get back the data from it. So that was the situation. Now, thankfully, we had some backup, except the backup was not complete. So we did lose some data along the way with this incident. But yeah, we still managed after 2 weeks to get Tatoeba back online. So it actually took, first of all, 1 week for our host to address the issue, and then it took basically another week to like set up Tatoeba from scratch. and after 2 weeks it was running again. It was probably the most unpleasant experience from Tatoeba, and from this incident actually, there's been I guess a bit more awareness about how fragile Tatoeba could be, and how easily it could just disappear. And there's been like a few questions which have been asked in the wake of this incident, which I'll actually go through again a little bit later in the streams, because I think they're interesting questions, and I want to go over them again and provide a more up-to-date answer, because they are still relevant, I think. So so that was the closest Tatoeba has been to death, but it survived. And it survives mostly, I think, because there are people who care enough to take care of Tatoeba. So like probably the main danger of Tatoeba dying, in my opinion, is that nobody cares enough anymore to continue to work and to maintain, to work on the project and to maintain it. So this hasn't happened so far. So like in 15 years, there has always been somebody around, more or less around, who could take care of things when there's something that just breaks. There has always been somebody to help out. And I think, I think this will continue for, as I said earlier, for as long as people believe, like as long as the principles of Tatoeba are things that that people can associate to and want to keep alive, basically. But yeah, if there is nobody else to take care of the project, and that could be understandable because it's a project that is completely, well, not 100%, but it relies very, very much on volunteering, and so it could be that if the people who hold the most knowledge or the most power in Tatoeba decide that they cannot anymore spend time on the project, it could be that nobody else feels confident enough to take over, and that could be the end. Then of course there is the issue of the financial issue. So it doesn't cost nothing. It's not free to run this project, even though it's not very expensive. At the bare minimum, it's actually surprisingly quite inexpensive to have this whole project running. But yeah, if for some reason there's a sudden huge growth in users, and people ask like millions of sentences per day, I don't know, things like that, we probably cannot sustain it with the same amounts of budget that we currently have. Yeah, and then maybe one last aspect which kind of is related to if nobody wants to take over, is about the whole community itself. So Tatoeba is still a small project, so it still benefits from having a community that is quite friendly. It's like, it's not a toxic community. At least I wouldn't define it as toxic community. People are quite respectful on average, but if for some reason we had a surge of new users who have a very different mindset and who just make the whole environment very toxic, that could also lead to the death of Tatoeba, where, I mean, since this is a volunteer-based project, obviously, if you're not surrounded with people who are supportive and who are nice to you, there is very little motivation for you to stay around. So yeah. Okay, so let's continue with actually the blog post this one here that I was talking about earlier, where after the incident in 2017, which, by the way, I mean, since then we haven't had any issues anymore. We moved to another provider, host provider, and things are fine since then, at least for now. But yeah, there have been questions, because people obviously were worried. Can this happen again? How do we prevent this to happen again? Yeah. So the first question was, do you have any idea how much it would cost if Tatoeba moved to better web hosting with better support, 2 weeks to restore functionality? That is a bit too much, and that's not the first time something like this happened to the site. So yeah, before that, we actually, with that web host, we had another incident, which got solved a bit faster, but it wasn't the first time that Tatoeba was down. And so at the moment, I mean, at the time when this question was asked and at the time when I answered, I didn't have the clear data, but now today I can say that we did manage to move to objectively better web hosting, because we haven't had server issues. I think now it's been 4 years, so we did find a better web host for, at the beginning at least, for about the same amount of for the same price. So we were paying like 35 euros per month for the previous server, and when we moved, we also took a plan that was 35 euros per month, although right now we're spending more around 50 euros per month, because we needed a few more things. But yeah, so yeah, in the end, if you think that web hosting is an issue for Tatoeba, so this is not the thing that is the most worrying in terms of cost, I would say. It's still quite manageable, but again, only for the amount of activity and for the traffic that we have at the moment. Things could change, and then, to be honest, I have no idea what could happen. And now the thing is, even if we are now in a new server where we didn't have any problem, it doesn't mean that we are completely 100% safe. So that leads to actually the next question. Is there any way to avoid a potential following breakdown, or for that to save all the data? So yes, I said here, yes, there is a way. So one thing we did is move to another web hosting where we were not relying on just like where Tatoeba is rehosted on a single, like, you can reimagine it's just on this one computer there, and if the computer breaks, everything's gone. Now we are on a VPS, so it's virtualized, it's not a real machine, and we don't have issues with what we call hardware failure, where like the physical components of the machines just die. But yeah, that still doesn't make us 100% safe, and obviously we need to prevent or at least to mitigate such things, we need to make our own backups, which we have not really been doing in the best way. So that's probably one thing to work on. Like to start, I mean, we haven't had problems, so it's nothing is really like, I mean, until the problems happen, you don't feel the pressure to do it. But honestly, that's always something in the back of my mind, that Tatoeba, the reality today is that Tatoeba doesn't really have a nice backup system. So that's a very actually important task in the to-do list for that. But if we go back to this incident in 2017, one way how we managed to save some of the data. So what happened is that we had a backup that actually stopped so the incident happened in June, and we had a backup that was only having data up to February 2017. And one way we could retrieve the remaining months, so we couldn't retrieve all the data, but we could retrieve the remaining months because we have people who are downloading our weekly export. So part of it from the downloads page here. So basically, every week we export all the sentences and the translations and a bunch of other information. We export all these things, which people can download on a weekly basis. And some people are actually also downloading some files that we don't publicly like promote on the website, but that are still available in our download export folder. And so it's thanks to, well, if I should name, I think if I'm pronouncing correctly, it's thanks to Sharptooth. So Sharptooth is one member, long-time member of Tatoeba, who is often doing statistics. I mean, I don't know how often he publishes them, but he provides statistics about Tatoeba, like about how the corpus is growing and like who are the main contributors and stuff like that. And so to build his stats, he actually uses the files in here, and he had a copy of these files like the weekend. So we export every weekend, and he had a copy of this file from the weekend before it, like the SSD died. So he could provide us with these files, and we could restore part, I mean a large chunk of the sentences between February and June. So yeah, so those are some of the things that can be done to avoid like this whole breakdown. Now on a more technical level, we could also think of changing how Tatoeba works fundamentally, that instead of being a centralized system, it becomes a more distributed system. But that's a very, very challenging engineering feats to do. And so probably at this stage and for what Tatoeba is doing, it's maybe, I mean, it would be a very interesting thing to do, but it's probably a little bit out of scope. I mean, not out of scope, but out of reach for what we can do at the moment. But there could be ways where we actually change really the way how Tatoeba works, where if the tatoeba.org website is down, you could have still your own Tatoeba on your desktop, on your own computer, and you could still have a piece of the data, at least the data that is interesting to you, and a bunch of other people all have also a piece of Tatoeba's data, and these little Tatoeba nodes can communicate with each other to rebuild a full Tatoeba. Yeah, that could be something we can think of, but very difficult to implement. Right. Yeah, and so from all these questions, the last question was so how Tatoeba is funded. It looks like the recent problems and the current half-working status are the direct result of not having permanent staff, aka money. So yeah, I would say that's partially true. I guess if we had at that time somebody who was really full-time dedicated to maintaining and making sure Tatoeba runs without problem, first of all, we would probably not have this issue with having outdated backup, and we would probably have a plan of what to do if Tatoeba something in the Tatoeba infrastructure fails. We would know how we would have a plan to put it back up online as fast as possible, and it wouldn't have taken 2 weeks. So yeah, that's partially true, but at the same time, it could also be that there are things outside of our control, and no matter how much people we have working on it, it would have still been difficult to bring Tatoeba back online. But at the time when this question was asked, so how is Tatoeba funded? By it's funded mostly with donations. So if you're curious, that is actually transparent information, although it's not. I realize I haven't updated the page, and I should update it, but there is a page where you can see all the donations that Tatoeba received since it started to accept donations, and yeah, and it's missing a few things. So, but the main source for a very long time, the main source of funding was just donations, and it was enough. I mean, it's still enough, in fact, to keep Tatoeba alive at the bare minimum. So as long as we have, so thankfully we have someone who's donating us 50 euros per month, and 50 euros per month happens to be more or less the amount that it cost us to have to pay for the servers, and yeah, so as long as that's going on, we can pay for the servers, and Tatoeba can keep running. But if we go back a little bit more in time, besides of donations, Mozilla has actually been the biggest organization that has helped us financially. starting with back to 2011 actually, where they had a platform called Drumbits, and I put Tatoeba as a project in there, and it kind of got a bit of visibility, and from there we actually received a small grant of $2,500 back then. So that was a very long time ago, 10 years ago. But more recently, we received from them, so through a program called Mozilla Open Source Support, we received a grant in 2018 of $25,000. So that was really a big step, like that, you know, with donations, you can't really plan to have a whole lot of things. I mean, as long as donations are like they say monthly donations are maybe just 100 euros, 200, like if it's in this range, you can't really do anything a whole lot different with the money. But having like 25,000 was actually gave us the possibility to experiment with having actual paid staff. So of course nothing huge for this small amount of money, but still that was enough to to experiment. And with this money we actually had the very first employee, and actually only employee, well, yeah, only official employee, long-term long-term employee, that is Gilux. So that was in 2018, and in 2019 we applied again to try to have another grant a little bit smaller, and yeah, so with this money that we received from Mozilla, from Moz, we could actually sustain having somebody who is not full-time, because that's really too little for paying somebody who works full-time, but somebody who works part-time for some months of the years, so not the whole year, like 6 months, maybe 7, 8 months, stuff like that. For 3 years in a row we could have that. So that was a nice thing to have. And actually we can check a little bit. So there is this interesting graph from the Tatoeba GitHub repository, where we can kind of see the activity of Tatoeba in the source code. You can see the activity over the years since 2009, and we can see that around the time, around these years when we had fundings from Mozilla, there's been this spike of activity. Well, you know, for instance here, so here it was after sometime around like when the server crashed, there was quite of a downtime, but yeah, after that things got a little bit better, where we could have more evolutions, more things going on in Tatoeba, fixing lots of bugs, implementing new things. So this is what money can do. If you can have if you can afford to hire somebody who officially works on Tatoeba. Okay. So I talked about how Tatoeba is funded, and if you look at it for 2021, this is really not a whole lot, 55 euros per month, and sporadically maybe sometimes some single contributions, but overall it's nothing huge that we receive. Nonetheless, this is not totally updated, and I guess I can talk about it here. We did receive a few weeks ago a donation of 1,000 euros. So once in a while we will receive a pretty big donation. That's very exceptional. But this is thanks to one of my friends actually back in university, who knew about the project, and who decided to donate 1,000 euros through her company, which is advantageous, by the way, as well. So that's one thing. Unfortunately, kind of thing I hate to do, paperwork. So Tatoeba is a non-profit, so you can actually, if you donate money, you can actually deduct part of your donations from your taxes, but for that there is a whole process to do where you have to ask, I'm not sure how it's called, like the tax people. You have to ask them for confirmation that yes, your organization is indeed doing something that allows you to tell people that donate to you that they can have tax deductions. So there's that. But how much does it cost? So how much Tatoeba is funded, and compared to that, how much does it actually cost to run Tatoeba? So I already mentioned the servers. So at the very bare minimum, it's pretty cheap to run Tatoeba. So this is not information you can find anywhere. This is not things we don't publish, like the budgets and stuff like that, because to be honest, it's so minimal that there is not too much to say about that. But so the servers are 50 euros per month. The Tatoeba domain, so we have tatoeba.org and tatoeba.fr, even though I suppose nobody uses tatoeba.fr, and if you would ever go to that, it redirects to .org. But initially Tatoeba was only tatoeba.fr, and tatoeba.org came afterwards. So we have these two domains, and those are like 25 euros per year. So that's still like affordable. And then there's the cost of having a bank account for Tatoeba, which is around 10 euros per month. So it's like, in terms of costs, assuming like nobody does anything more, and Tatoeba kind of keeps running at the pace it's running, and like growing at the pace it's growing right now, like the cost of running Tatoeba is like virtually nothing, I would say, at the bare minimum. It doesn't take much to keep it alive. Okay, somebody in chat just says thank you. Because of you, I'm learning Amharic language. So you're welcome. Glad we can help. So yeah, at the bare minimum, it's fairly cheap to run Tatoeba, but obviously that's really just if there is like zero ambitions to do anything better than what we are doing right now. And yeah, that is also hoping that people do continue to donate. So to be honest, on my side, I think like I will be involved until like my whole life in Tatoeba, at least until my brain, as long as my brain can function properly, I will very likely be involved in Tatoeba. And so like for as long as we don't push Tatoeba too much, like as long as the pace of growth is continuing at this current pace, even if there was no donations at all, I think I would personally invest in keeping Tatoeba alive, because I guess being the founder of Tatoeba, I feel it's a little bit my duty to keep it alive. But yeah. And so the one thing also to mention is that the fact that there is little cost of running Tatoeba is also thanks to the fact that we are an open source and a non-profit. So there's a few advantages we can get by being open source and non-profit that if we were not, then yeah, we would have to pay for. There's at least two things I can think of, but I mean, there's maybe other things. If anyone is aware of things that could make our lives easier as an open source project, like any services that we can get that makes our life easier, let me know. But on my side, there are two things I can think of. The first one being managing the translations of the UI. So that's with this website I showed earlier, Transifex. So this we can use it for free actually, because we are an open source project. And more recently, another thing that I'll have to explore a little bit more, but we had issues with emails, the way we were handling emails. So to have our emails ending with @tatoeba.org, and I had to search another way to prevent, to make sure that there weren't emails disappearing. And I was told that there was something with Microsoft, which they offered for non-profits. So yeah, okay. I'm in incognito mode, so this is German, but yes, Microsoft has a program for non-profit, which at the moment I'm using just because I needed to change email service, basically. But they offer a bunch of other things, probably most notably Azure, so their cloud infrastructure, where maybe we could think of hosting Tatoeba, which could reduce server costs to 0, maybe, but I don't know. That's still to be explored. So yeah. Now, again, this low cost is, of course, if we just trying to do the bare minimum to keep Tatoeba alive. Now, if we were to think about fulfilling all the ambitions of Tatoeba, yeah, this this can get a lot more expensive, could get to millions of dollars, hundreds of years of of work. There's actually quite a lot of things to do in this project. I mean, maybe as a day-to-day regular user, you don't realize, but there is a lot of things to do in this project. Yeah. So how much is there to do? You might ask. So I actually found a blog post also from a long time ago, but I feel it's quite relevant still today, with the question, who wants to help? So already back then, we had a lot of things to do, and we had one day where we had a huge spike of visits, and where, it felt, okay, if this is gonna grow like that, we're gonna need a little bit more than 2 developers who are like still students in computer engineering to take care of this whole platform. And so I wrote a blog post that kind of categorizes the areas where help is needed, and it's still quite relevant today. So the first part is the corpus, and the corpus is, the obvious part. This is why probably a lot of people register to Tatoeba, although probably to be fair, a lot of people probably register to Tatoeba just to kind of see what kind of extra features you get when you are registered, but many people register as well to be able to contribute to Tatoeba. So if I would log in, so the main point of being a registered user is that you can contribute, so you can create new sentences and you can translate sentences, and you can also help find mistakes and correct typos, grammatical mistakes, and such things by posting comments on the sentences. So that's the obvious way to help the project, is to actually contribute content, because the more content we have and the more it can be useful to others, because when you search a word, it's nice if you can find results for it, for any words that you can think of. So that's probably the main that's the main activity, let's say. But that's really not the only activity. The other very, very big part of Tatoeba, and that, in my opinion, that's in the short term at least, not just the short term, like that's for the few years to come the most important one to me. Like I would be okay to completely stop every contribution in the corpus and just focus on improving the platform itself, because I think like with all the experience, like it's been running now for 15 years, and we've collected like more knowledge about what it means to build a corpus of sentences and translations, and what kind of process would be needed for that. And in fact, if you go and check our GitHub repository, if you check the issues, you will see that there is 388 open issues, actually close to 2,000 issues closed. But yeah, so 388 open, and it actually keeps increasing over time, mostly because we don't really have a workforce of developers who will be looking into these issues and trying to be solving them. And so it keeps accumulating over time. But because over time we learn about things that could really make this whole platform better, and yeah, and it's been slowly documented in here. And the things that we see in here is not even it's not even the whole thing. There's many things that that I personally have in mind that I probably that I didn't create any tickets about it, and there's probably things that other people or other ideas that people have that haven't been documented here. So development is a really, really big part, because Tatoeba is not a platform that is just going to stay like this, and it doesn't have to be. It's something that ideally should be always evolving. Like ideally, if we go back to this graph over here, ideally we would like to have this much activity, at least until we deplete all the ideas and all the ambitions that we have, but that will take a long time. If you notice, in the past few months, activity has slowed down quite a bit. So yeah. Can we do something to change it? Maybe, hopefully 2022 we see another spike. At least that's what I'm hoping that we can achieve, and that's partially why I'm doing these streams, because I hope that some people might watch it and might learn things and might get interested, and might understand that they can be part of shaping this platform. So yeah, so development is a big thing. Then next area would be documentation. So yeah, documentation, it's also for me, it's also an important part. I think like we have actually a wiki. So documentation actually is not just documentation for or technical things, but also documentation in general for the users. And we do have a space wiki, which is probably not very easy to navigate to. I mean, I'm not sure. I've never really interviewed people, new users, and asked them like how did it feel navigating in our wiki, but it's probably not the most easy place like to navigate through, and also it's not like available in a whole lot of languages. So there's that's the next part, I guess. A little bit more below down here, that's more about translations. But yeah, documentation, having things to help people understand how Tatoeba works, that's also a part where if you feel that you're not very inspired to create, like you don't have much skills in so you don't have enough creativity to create new sentences, you don't have enough knowledge in a foreign language to do translations, and in general maybe you're not interested in like proofreading, that's something you find boring. Well, maybe you are interested in in writing documentations and helping people. So if you still think the project is worthwhile, you can help like writing documentation and help new users understand better how Tatoeba works. There's the community aspect. So as I've mentioned, like people is really a central part of Tatoeba. So having a nice community, having a supportive community, that's one of the things that encourages all of us who are volunteers to continue doing things for this project, because we find people who are like-minded, who enjoy the same things that we do, who believe that languages is super interesting, and it's like we're kind of all together trying to achieve a goal. And so yeah, the community, if it were to become toxic, that would probably ruin everything. So having people who can kind of manage this community and make sure that we can provide a friendly and safe environment and inspiring environment for people to contribute in, that's also a big thing. Then translation. So this isn't about the translations in the corpus itself, but making Tatoeba. So there is this irony that we are a platform that collects sentences and translations, but yet it's still a little bit difficult for us to get our content translated, like the content in the wiki or the user interface itself. It's not that easy for us to get it translated into every possible languages, and so there is a lot of things to do there still. And back then we were actually on a platform called Launchpad. Now that I'm being remembered of it, this platform was actually a lot more difficult to use than Transifex. But yeah. Another area, design. So you may not think about it at first, but in order to, so this is going in pair with development. So as developers, like we know how to code something for a functionality to work, but we don't necessarily know how to design the features so that they are the most user-friendly, so that they are the most easy to use. It can be quite difficult actually to think of ways to, like when you want something new, to think of where to put a certain button, what text to write, what label to use, and yeah, because there are certain constraints. You are limited in a certain rectangle, and you can't just do all kinds of things. So design is actually quite difficult, and finding people who want to contribute as designer. So with my experience, finding people who want to contribute as designer seems a lot more difficult than trying to find people who want to contribute, as volunteers, like as contributors. That has been my experience, at least. But yes, and it's an area that for me is quite important as well, because that's something I'm quite interested in myself, and I like to have nice UIs and easy to use UIs and things that are really straightforward for a beginner. And like having a good UI definitely helps to get more people on board, because if Tatoeba is too complicated to use, if at the moment you register and then you're just struggling to do the next step to learn, like to understand how you can add translations, how you can edit your sentences, if you struggle to understand these things and you just give up, then yeah, it's less content for us. So yeah, I guess I'm not going to go through too much details in the last areas, but testing. So testing, because in the there was actually a time when we were deploying quite a lot of new things, and so whenever you deploy new things, of course you can break, like when you implement new things, you can break old things, or like maybe the new features don't totally work as expected, and so having people to test is like super helpful. Technical support, so this is a little bit related to documentation as well. I mean, there will actually always be people who will not read documentation and who might have an easier time to just having somebody help them understand how something works, and so to have people who can just provide this kind of support is helpful. Communication, so yeah, we used to have something, so I used to personally write every time something new was deployed on the website to write a few words about what's new, and so this is maybe a small thing, but this takes time, and like having somebody who takes care of such things, like communicating what's happening in Tatoeba, is yeah, it's helpful, but it does require you to know the inside of to be more of an insider in Tatoeba. And then there was also this category events, which we've tried to organize the time, and also organizing events is a lot of time and effort. So the last event we organized was this coding event. We called it Kodoeba, where we invited people to join us and try to do something, either contributing something to the source code of Tatoeba itself, or doing some small project using Tatoeba's data, and it was really nice to have, but it was also a lot of effort. So yeah, if you don't necessarily need to like be a developer or anything, but if you're the kind of person who likes to organize events, there's maybe things you can think of to help Tatoeba. I mean, it could also be like a donation campaign. We've actually never done a donation campaign. That is an event in itself, and that is also a lot of efforts. So yeah, there's actually lots of ways you can help in Tatoeba that is beyond just contributing to the corpus and contributing as a developers. There's many small things here and there. So that's just an overview, and there's maybe things I haven't listed even in here that I haven't thought of. So yeah, lots of things to do. So compared to all of this that I've listed here, maybe you're interested in knowing, well, who is actually part of the Tatoeba organization, like who does what in Tatoeba, how is it organized. So we can start with the most visible place, which is the Tatoeba website. where if you go to the list of members, you will actually notice that some members have a specific status. So we have 4 of them: admin, corpus maintainer. If I go a little bit further, we'll have advanced contributor, and if I go even further, we will have just regular contributor. So regular contributor is the status where you would start with, and this allows you basically to add translations, add sentences and add translations. But then we have a next status, advanced contributor, where so this is a status that we grant to people who have shown to be like familiar enough with Tatoeba and trustworthy enough. They've shown that they understand how Tatoeba works, and they can handle a little bit more complex features, let's say, or features that require a little bit more knowledge of Tatoeba. Which is mainly being able to link sentences and being able to tag sentences. So, like, this is not so. Let's say, advanced contributors, they are not part of like the official Tatoeba organization, like the non-profit organization, but they still take part in this project and they still have a certain role that helps shape the project. Then on top of that, so when people when people are already familiar with the project and they've shown to actually have a little bit more of expertise, like they have a reliable level and they are a reliable contributor, they can become a corpus maintainer. And so as a corpus maintainer, you get to be able to actually edit any sentence in the corpus. So fundamentally, like, every user is responsible of the sentences that they contribute, but obviously what this means is that if there is a mistake in a sentence, we expect that whoever created the sentence will correct it. Now, of course, it can happen that people simply stop contributing, and so even though you would put a comment, even 5 years later, the mistake is still there. And that's basically the main reason why we have this special status of corpus maintainer, to have the possibility, to have a process where such mistakes don't remain as mistakes forever. And on top of that, there is also a certain expectations that it's tied to being a corpus maintainer, is that you have to be proficient enough in whichever language you are trying to maintain. And so corpus maintainers are usually, even though technically they can edit any language, any sentence in any language, corpus maintainers will be specialized in like the languages that they are that they have the most knowledge of. And then we have the last status, which is admin. So being admin, so some of the admins also do corpus maintenance, but being an admin is not is no longer about the corpus, it's more about the community. And basically an admin, what they can do is to suspend the account of a user. So this is if somebody is causing really a lot of trouble for the project. This is you have to contact an admin. In fact, there is a special account that you can write to if you have any issues with a user or a group of users, and you think something should be done. You can contact the admins through these accounts, and yeah, that's the main job of the admins. Now the reality is that even if a member of Tatoeba has a certain role, it does not necessarily mean that they are actively doing something related to this role. So even though you from the members page, you can kind of have an idea of who's taking care of what in Tatoeba. You can't rely 100% on it, because sometimes for like we don't really have let's say a process to remove a status. So once somebody gains a certain status, it's very rare that we will remove it from them, especially that as they are trustworthy, it doesn't hurt us to leave people with their roles, even if they are not doing anything anymore in Tatoeba. But yeah, so that's one place where you can kind of see who's doing what in Tatoeba, and obviously you can check the profile of each member to kind of have a better idea. Many members will explain what they are doing in Tatoeba. Right, so maybe before I continue, an interesting information few people are aware of is that Tatoeba as an organization, so where do we have that? Terms of use, yeah. So Tatoeba as a non-profit organization actually has officially only 3 members. Maybe something that I've always wanted to change for a long time now. So on paper, people who are part of the organization are myself, Cisco, who is not active anymore in the project itself, but he still checks it once in a while, so he's still overlooking over the project. And one member who is like just a regular member, because basically we needed 3 people to start the organization. But officially there's just 3 people who are part of the Tatoeba organization so far. Maybe at some point, not maybe, probably, very likely, hopefully, I can find the time and the energy to change that a little bit and to have Tatoeba as a real organization. But the reality is that the Tatoeba organization was really just created so that we can have a bank account associated to this organization, and we can access things, like do things as a legal entity rather than just individuals. So yeah. But yeah, the organization on paper does not really represent the reality of how Tatoeba is organized. There's obviously a lot more people involved. You could, in a way, think that every person who registered and is a member of Tatoeba could be part of the Tatoeba organization. Yeah. So how are the responsibilities of Tatoeba split at the moment? So as far as I can tell, yeah, we have kind of different areas that where we can really assign responsible people. We can start with the community management. So the whole process of deciding who becomes an advanced contributor, who becomes a corpus maintainer, and who knows who becomes an admin as well. This is handled by the admins, and more specifically by Lisa, or also known as 40 Baumchen, if I pronounce it correctly. So she's the main person who's doing the community management at the moment. But anybody who is in this list here is also helping out in a way or another. And so that also includes making interventions when like there is spam. Yeah, deleting or hiding spam is part of the jobs of the admins. But the whole community management is mostly handled by Lisa. There is, of course, everything that is corpus maintenance, so making sure that things get corrected, updated in the corpus. This is everybody who has the role corpus maintainer, so this is visible this is transparent and visible in the list of members, and anybody who is an admin can also take part in corpus management activity. Then there is development. So development here, I think you would be able to see it maybe from people. No, actually you can't unless you are, I'm not sure if you need to be registered, so it's not completely transparent, at least from the GitHub repository, who is actually taking care of maintaining the this repository, the source code. Although you can probably have kind of an idea if you dig around, and mostly if you look at the pull request, if you look at what's going on in the pull request, who are the people who are merging the things, you could figure out who are the people who basically have the power of deciding what kind of new features go into Tatoeba and what features don't make it, what changes don't make it. Now at the moment there's basically just two people. That would be myself and Gilux, who was with me in the stream last week, where we deployed a bunch of new things. We deployed it live on the website. So that's for development. Then there's another area of Tatoeba that I didn't mention so far, but it was not the main focus of Tatoeba at first, but it's still something we started along the way, which is audio. And so the way people contribute audio to Tatoeba is unfortunately not like a direct way. So there's no way from the website directly where you could record audio and the audio gets published. You have to go through a little bit more burdensome process where you have to contact us, and then you have to record audio on your side and then send us the files, and then somebody has to upload the files, and then they will be available. And so the main person who is in charge of audio at the moment is CK. Now, technically speaking, everybody who is an admin can not entirely, actually, no, yeah. Like CK, actually, for now, only him has the possibility to upload, to put audio on the server, but yeah, anybody else who is an admin has the possibility, once the audio exists, would have the possibility to edit this audio by either removing incorrect audio or maybe edit information about the audio. Most likely the user, if there was anything to update in that matter. So yeah, so audio. Then we have two last things. Translation. So the translations of the UI itself, as I've shown earlier with trans effects. So I'm not logged in, but actually let's stay here. We actually have from the wiki, I think, translations, translating the interface. Yeah, we have a page here in case somebody wants to help us translate the interface. That would be the steps, but we have somebody again here who is managing the translators, like allowing, inviting, accepting new translators into the project, and also adding new languages in case we find translators for new languages, and a little bit also searching for new translators, although these days I think he doesn't have so much time anymore. But that is our member Ricardo. So basically, if you wanted to join the translators team, the UI translators team, you would just contact Ricardo. And the last area where we have people who have responsibilities is the languages, where Ricardo is also a member of, but and that is he helps on the more on the technical side of it, let's say, but on the decision of what new languages we add and what is the language icon we use for that language. We have a member who is responsible for this, and that is our member Sabrotu. So yeah, so that is how Tatoeba is organized at the moment. At least if I haven't forgotten anyone, that is the main. At least that is the main jobs that we have. So again, all of this is volunteer work. Nobody is paid at the moment. Nobody is paid for doing what they are doing. But yeah, this is the kind of jobs that we have. Yeah. And yeah, this is of course this is not like fixed in stone. This is so the way we are organized, since this is volunteer based, this is mostly people who are willing to dedicate a bit of their time to ensure that things can keep running and can remain stable, let's say, in Tatoeba. Now, if anyone who's watching this wants to like take a more important role, have a little bit more responsibilities, feels like they can take care of certain tasks and help things get done faster, then yeah, then you are free to contact me, or you are free to just like write on the wall, if you're not too shy about it. You are free to express yourself and let us know what you would like to help with. There is always a lot of things to do, and we are always in need of more people to take care of all the things that needs to be taken care of. Okay. So how long has this been now? Yeah, I haven't covered all the questions yet, and it seems like I may not be able to cover all the questions, so we may have to leave it. Yeah, we may have. So there are some topics like the quality of the corpus, and also topics of community management, about like what kind of troublesome behavior we have experienced and how do we deal with that. So probably that I don't have time to talk about today, but I can make like these streams are going to continue, and I will keep talking about Tatoeba, all kinds of aspects of Tatoeba. So there will be another stream where I can address that. But maybe the last questions I can answer is a question that was once asked in the wall. So that was in Spanish. So it was asked in the wall, but there was also a similar question where a member asked me directly, and it's about promoting Tatoeba. So if I would translate roughly here, this user is saying, yeah, I'm starting to lose my voice, so that means I should stop the stream soon. This user is saying that it would be good to promote the website in schools, basically schools, institutions, libraries, cultural associations, to promote Tatoeba in these places. And yeah, he says, I'm convinced that a lot of language students that do not know Tatoeba would be active users. So the general idea of promoting Tatoeba is, yeah, I think if you really enjoy this project, if you think it's really worthwhile, if you think we are doing something useful and good for the rest of the world, then please go ahead and promote. Now, the one reason why in general you won't see a whole lot of efforts put into promoting Tatoeba is because as I've repeated a few times, there's really a lot of things to do in Tatoeba, and one consequence of promoting Tatoeba is that it brings more users, it brings more people, but it brings also more work. And with the current team that we have, we cannot really take that much more work. We can't, since everybody is volunteers, we cannot ask people to simply stop living their lives and just take care of Tatoeba. And so promoting Tatoeba at a scale where all of the sudden we have instead of how many contributions per day do we have? I think we have around 2,000 contributions per day on average. So yeah, this month is more around 1,600, but if we take another month, have around 2,000. If we go from suddenly 2,000 to I don't know, 100,000, not that it's I don't think such thing would happen in a short time, but if the amount of activity increased too suddenly, that would become unmanageable. So promoting Tatoeba, it's good, but obviously we don't want to do it in a way that would bring so much traffic and so much more demand that we won't be able to manage this demand. So yeah, but in any case, I absolutely don't want to discourage anybody from promoting. The thing is that because there is already so much work with all the existing things, I guess the people who are most in position to, let's say, who might hold more knowledge about Tatoeba and who might speak about Tatoeba in a more insightful way, like myself. At least I can speak for myself. It's hard for me to find the time to promote Tatoeba, and mostly knowing that if I promote Tatoeba and I somehow manage to promote successfully Tatoeba, then it just gives me more work and more stress and these kind of things. But I'm always happy if other people try to tell the world about Tatoeba. We do need more people to join, but we do need actually more people. At the moment, we do need more people who want to get involved into shaping this project, shaping the platform, more than we need people to know about it and to use it. Right. So yeah, I think that's a good place to stop. The rest, so the other topics, as I've said, there's several other topics I wanted to address, but it turns out I talked for longer than I was expecting. But yeah, if there's anything that you're interested in, anything you'd like to learn more in details about Tatoeba, any questions that you have about how things work that I didn't address today, then you are always free to ask at any time. And yeah, I will be answering either replying to your message on the wall, or I will be answering during a stream. But yeah, if you're interested, please don't hesitate to ask. You can also ask me in private if you want to have a private conversation with me. That's no problem. And yeah, I think we can stop for today. So I hope you learned a few things. I hope that was good insight for you, that it was educational, that it made you want maybe to to spend a little bit more time on, like, let's say the front lines, like of Tatoeba, or the back scene, like helping, taking care of things that are maybe not so visible when you first see the website. You maybe don't realize, oh, I could help about these things, and not just creating content, translations and sentences. Right. So maybe one last information before we stop. This is maybe the last stream of the year. I'm not sure yet. I might be doing a stream a little bit before New Year, but otherwise it might be the last stream of the year. So if that's the case, and if you are going to celebrate Christmas, New Year, and stuff, I hope then you have happy celebrations. And yeah, that's it for today. See you.